very grateful to have Dave Stehlin with us, who is the CEO of TIA, a sister organization that is, let's see, tell us a little bit, how old is TIA? You've been around a pretty good bit.
Long time, yeah.
Back when I served in Congress. And
almost as old as me.
I know. Earlier today, I told everybody I turned 60 this year, and that I entered into the old age portal. But it is, as we have watched the various generations of technology, the different stages, the big moments, it feels like we're in two big moments right now. One, we're connecting every American through the largest infusion of public investment through the infrastructure bill, the BEAD funding, $42.5 billion. And at the same time, you've had this emerging new accessible AI generative language model, ChatGPT and Bard, and what all that means. But take a step back just a minute and talk to everyone here about TIA, your mission, your organization, some of the people that are our members, and what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, so TIA in one form or another has been around for about 80 years, and we're somewhat unique in the industry in that we combine government advocacy and standards development. So big part of what we do is understand what's coming down the pike from the government side and technology side, and try to get ahead of that with standards that will help the industry grow. So our prime membership are the equipment providers, the Ciscos, the Nokias, Ericssons, CommScopes, Cornings, folks like that. We also have very large service providers as members. We're an international organization, so it's not just US. And we're technology agnostic, so we want the whole industry to rise, and it's not just the legacy telco industry, that's the T in TIA, but it's the whole ICT industry, because everything's connected these days, and TIA's prime focus is to become the trusted industry association for the connected world, because everything's connected from IoT to core routers, wireline, wireless, satellite, doesn't matter.
So with that backdrop and introduction and description of what your organization does, how do you see AI? And there's a large discussion in Washington, D.C. right now. Hearings, congressional leadership, White House leadership. What should we do as this technology and all of its tremendous potential and promise, but correspondingly, all of the potential risk and threats? Should we have best practices? Should we have standards? Should we have some type of licensing or certification? Talk a little bit of how TIA, some of your experiences on cybersecurity and other ways that you've worked with companies in that context and how it might apply to AI.
Yeah, well, the US government is getting very prescriptive overall when it comes to the ICT industry. And some recent examples will be some of the cybersecurity work that's going on in the government. Now, there's lots of different facets of the government. You have the White House speaking about things, you have things going on in Congress, Department of Homeland Security with CISA gets involved, Department of Commerce gets involved with NTIA that gives that $42 billion for the BEAD program, for example. FCC gets involved in consumer protection from this perspective, but they're moving a lot faster than they used to, and I'll give you a good example. So in January of 21, the National AI Initiative Act became law. And then that drove NIST to come up with the AI risk management framework. So NIST comes out with frameworks, not necessarily standards, just issues out there, basic requirements that cover every type of perspective in a connected world. Not necessarily networks, but something much broader than that. But NIST typically takes 5 to 10 years to update these frameworks. For example, the cybersecurity framework came out in 2014. They're just now coming up with Rev 2 of that. But on the AI side, they've already come out with release 2 of their AI framework in less than a year. And then what we've seen happening is you then get the, not just the standards or the framework organizations like NIST get involved, but then the FCC starts driving things and Department of Commerce starts driving things. So it all gets connected. and I frequently use the term that government is getting much more prescriptive. And if industry doesn't get ahead of government, the prescription coming from government will be overbearing, and we won't be able to live with it. But if we can demonstrate leadership, that we're thinking ahead, it will help government back off a bit, and we have a number of examples where that's happened.
Talk to us a little bit about some of those examples.
Yeah.
Other models that have been successful where TIA has kind of stepped in and on the industry side adopted practices, certification, or standards without a government prescription. Talk some about those models.
So there are two types of standards. One is a technical standard. For example, we run a standard, and over our history, we've run over 3,000 standards. So some are things as simple as the cell tower. Are you using the right type of steel? The right types of bolts? How often do you check it? Things like that. They're technical standards. But then you have process improvement standards. How can you as an organization improve your process to meet an end goal? The most recent one we released is the what we call SCS 9001, and it's a cyber and supply chain security process standard, process improvement standard. So we take, for example, all those basic requirements in NIST that are in the cybersecurity framework, and we convert those to things that are measurable, things that are specific to the ICT industry, and then you can certify against those measurables using a third-party certification body. Now, these standards don't just get created by a small handful of people in the back room at TIA. It's our volunteers of our 400 plus members. So we have more than 1,000 individuals that are involved in helping us create and write these standards. So that SCS 9001 is the very first cybersecurity process standard in the industry, period. There's nothing else like it. It's comprehensive, yes. Nobody likes a new standard, but sometimes you have to do these types of things to protect yourselves. Now, I'll give you another example. One is 25 years ago, we created the industry's first quality standard called TL 9000. So how can you ensure that the quality of the routers, switches, and everything else in a network are of such a good quality that you're not going to have failures? If you have problems, we always do, can you quickly fix those problems? So that TL 9000 standard is still in place 25 years later, continually improved, continually upgraded. Thousands and thousands of sites and factories and companies have been certified against that.
You know, you and I met for breakfast not too long ago, and as we talked about AI and its emergence, really one of the big things on adoption is there a trust? Is there a consumer trust? Is there a business trust? Is there a confidence that it won't be misused? Our data won't be misused. Our privacy will be protected. The risk to our company from malicious intent of use of AI. So talk to it, kind of connect the dots between a model that protects and standards on cybersecurity and how that might be applied into AI.
Sure, and you know the previous panel was a good one. One thing that all business managers now know is their cybersecurity insurance costs are going through the roof. All right, we all are experiencing that. I think ours went up 30% last year. And you can't control that. How do you manage something like that? Well, one way to do that is to ensure that you've got certifications and processes in place that you can demonstrate to the insurance company that you're thinking ahead. The same thing that has applied for cybersecurity in the last few years will apply for AI coming up. You know, we all know that there are significant advantages for AI, cost reductions, new revenue generation, et cetera, but you have to deal with the risk. And like you and I talked about, technology always leads security. So how can security catch up? If you have the proper processes in place and are continually improving those processes, you will lessen your risk, you'll lower your insurance cost. But I've been in the telecom industry for 39 years now, and I've seen a massive amount of change. Network engineering is now run by the IT organization, right? So that's a big fundamental shift that's happened. IT historically is different than network engineering, but those IT folks have got to understand that this risk is much more pervasive than just a server in a data center. It's a whole network. So by building process-based process improvement standards that are industry acceptable, global, doesn't matter about technology, you can demonstrate to your customers, to the government, to insurance companies that you're thinking ahead and you're mitigating risk.
So to put this, so as a recovering member of Congress that like to legislate, which then usually delegated to a regulatory agency with specific directions.
Yep.
And then you had a top-down, bureaucratic, rule-based system. You kind of offer a bottom-up industry volunteer if the industry is proactive
Yeah.
in trying to adopt best practices and processes that would safeguard and create the type of trust that we need in the marketplace for the adoption of a transformational application.
Yep.
Are there any other examples or models that you think have been successful within your membership and organization that, again, apply to the challenges that we face today?
So, just like you, we found that that the government, for the most part, listens pretty well. They don't always do what you want, but they listen. And we have been working with the White House, Congress, DOD, CISA, Department of Homeland Security, across the board, and a number of other governments as well, to try to let them know about these types of things. National Security Council, NSA, and we found that their intent is, number one, to bring it all together so they can speak in one voice, but number two, they want to listen to industry. They don't want things to be so overbearing, but they know that there's a real risk here. And we have had wonderful conversations with them. A lot of the things that we've done, they've taken up. I'll give you another example. So 5G was spoken of a minute ago. The U.S. government is pushing in a way to get Western technology used in those parts of the world that are not using Western technology and are not already in China's camp, for example. So there's that third of the world that doesn't yet align itself with either the US or the West and China. So they're helping those countries overcome significant problems. Most recent example is Costa Rica. So Costa Rica had a really significant cyber attack, brought down the entire government. They shut down every website in the government. They started doing business by paper again for a 6-month period. The US helped them to try to rebuild their cybersecurity, and they're building a new 5G network, and the US is helping to fund that. One of the requirements that they put in place, both from Department of Commerce and Department of State, is there must be a cybersecurity standard that is met. And believe it or not, they picked ours. So we didn't tell them to pick it, but they picked ours. So that's an example of how government can listen to industry and help solve a significant problem.
Well, as our time winds down, one of the reasons I invited Dave is that just as you want to promote bipartisanship in our legislative institutions and in our government, we also want to promote cross-industry collaboration, cooperation, teamwork. What INCOMPAS, where we have our strengths, you complement with your strengths. And we can all work together as we have both two historic things converging at once. The building and the funding of new networks, privately and publicly. And then this new disruptive technology of generative AI, and how do we maximize the good and the benefit in both sectors in a way that all of our member companies in the industry that we serve, and more importantly, the communities and consumers that we serve, can have something that is trusted, safe, redundant, resilient, and reliable.
That's right.
And so I really want to commend you on the great leadership that you provide at TIA. I look forward to working with you as we try to solve problems across the industry. And thank you for coming to INCOMPAS.
Great. It's great to be here. Thanks, Jeff.